I believe I've mentioned the Greeks were the first peoples to have a constitution and to practice what we might call democracy. A later Greek philosopher, Plato, and his successor Aristotle said that government goes in cycles. You start off with a monarchy, and that gives way to a tyranny, and that gives way to an oligarchy, which in turn degenerates. Now, that degenerates to a democracy, and then the cycle starts all over again, even though sometimes democracy goes to a tyranny. Now, when used in modern English, the word tyrant always means a bad person who rules like a dictator. In the Greeks, the word tyranny merely meant a rule by one man. Well, what's the difference between a tyranny and a monarch? The monarch received his crown by hereditary means because his father was king. So a monarch was hereditary. Tyranny was whoever could grab the power, or whoever had the power conferred on him. He was the tyrant. Oligarchy, that's a rule by the rich. Sometimes a bunch of rich people would get together and they would decide we're the government, or sometimes the people would confer it on them. So you who are wealthy, maybe you're smarter than the rest of us, so it would be ruled by the rich. But no matter what kind of rule they had, eventually they got rid of their oligarchs when the common people said, we want the power. Now, democracy has had such a good name in modern 21st century America and Britain, developed a really bad name among the Greeks and the Romans because they decided it did not work. Democracy would work until your ordinary people learned that they could either dip their hand in a public pot. And by the way, we don't know who said that. Somebody, somewhere along the way, said that democracy will work until the common people realize they can dip their hand in the public treasury and try to pull out all the money that's in the treasury, and when that happens, democracy will fail. Socrates said democracy would fail when people got tired of the lawlessness, and I believe we talked about that last time, and demanded someone come along who could straighten out the mess. Then this whole cycle then would repeat all over again. They'd frequently go from democracy to a monarchy, a tyranny, so on and so forth. Now, not only did the Greeks do, the Romans wound up doing this also. As far as we know, Rome started out with a monarch, which degenerated after a while into it started out with a monarch, which went down, which by Romans, degenerated to democracy, and then the democracy gave way to a tyranny. So we'll talk about the same thing in Rome. The Roman democracy only lasted a few generations. A problem with democracy is it seems to only work in time of peace, or when you're living like we do in the United States where our enemies are far away. In time of war, democracy breaks down. You may know that during the Civil War, when the enemy was just across the river, both the Union and the Confederacy suspended their democracy. Abe Lincoln and Jefferson Davis, both of them ruled with more power than Great Britain has given its kings in hundreds of years. And during World War I and World War II, freedom of speech was suppressed. Freedom to criticize the government was greatly suppressed. We didn't in Vietnam, and we lost. So maybe that speaks for itself. We won World War I, won World War II. Also, in Europe, both sides in both world wars suspended their democracies. Well, actually, the Germans didn't have a democracy, but Great Britain and France suspended their democracy during World War I. In World War II, Britain suspended its democracy largely. Now, largely as in France, they were overpowered right at the beginning of the war. But anyway, democracy doesn't seem to work in time of wartime, or it doesn't seem to work when the enemy is just over the hill or just across the river. Again, your book says that tyranny was dispensed with by about the 6th century BCE, in other words, around the year 600, the last of the tyrants. But tyranny, your book says, played a big role in the evolution of Greek development. Something I forgot to mention about the hoplite, they made the wars get over with quickly, and I mentioned it would lead to few casualties, but it enabled the Greeks to defeat much larger armies. Oftentimes someone would hire a big army of mercenaries against them. Mercenaries are known to run when a battle gets tough. They'll fight for money, and they'll fight when the going is easy. When a battle gets tough, they'll run, and the Greek hoplites would often defeat much larger armies themselves. It seemed like the Greeks loved warfare, and warfare was just a constant among them. It's somewhat sad today, but during both the 20th century wars, World War I and World War II, Greece suffered terribly. In fact, the Greeks have done very little winning of wars since ancient times. Since they were conquered by Philip of Macedon in about 340 BCE, they have not done much militarily. And yet, in their younger days, armies would just melt in front of them. All right.